Hey guys, and welcome to the next chapter of the A to Z Mysteries, The Absent Author. We're going to read chapter 4. Mr. Paskey shooed them out of the book nook and locked the front door. I have to eat lunch, he said. He scurried down Main Street. Come on, Dink said. There's a phone in Ellie's diner. Good, we can eat while you're calling. Josh stopped. Wait, who are you calling? The airport, Dink said, to see if Wallace Wallace was on the 7 o'clock flight last night. They walked into Ellie's diner just as Jimmy Fallon and his grandfather came out. Jimmy was working on a triple-decker chocolate cone. Ellie stood behind the counter, and as usual, her apron was smeared with ketchup mustard chocolate and a lot of stuff Dink didn't really recognize. Ellie smiled. Hi, Dink. Butter crunch, right? Dink shook his head. No thanks, Ellie. I came to actually use your phone. Excuse me, but would it be all right if I bought you each a cone? Mavis Green asked. I was going to buy lunch for Mr. Wallace anyways. Well, gee, thanks, Josh said. I'll have a scoop of mint chip and a scoop of pistachio. Oh, so you like green ice cream too, Mavis said. She smiled shyly. I'll have the same, please. I like pink ice cream, Ruth Rose said. I'll have a strawberry cone, please. 1 scoop. How about you, Dink? Mavis asked. I'm not very hungry, thanks, he said. But you guys go right on ahead. I'm going to call the airport. Dink felt guilty. If he hadn't invited Wallace Wallace to Greenlawn, his favorite author would be safe at home in his castle in Maine. But Dink couldn't help feel excited, too. He felt like a detective from one of Wallace's books. Dink stepped into the phone booth, looked up the number for New England Airlines and called, and when a voice came on, he asked if Wallace Wallace had been aboard Flight 3132 last night. He was. Did it land at 7 o'clock, Dink asked? Well, thanks a lot. That would never happen now. Ever. You could never get that info. He rushed out of the phone booth. Hey, guys, they told me that Wallace Wallace was on the plane and it landed right on time. So he didn't miss his flight, Ruth Rose said through strawberry pink lips. That's right. Dink pulled out his itinerary. He drew a line through airport. This is so exciting, Ruth Rose said. Now what? Josh asked, working on his double dipper. Dink pointed to his next circle on his itinerary. Now we need to find out if a taxi picked him up, he said. Lawrence taxi is over by the river, Ruth Rose said. Dink looked at Mavis. Would you like to come with us? We can walk there in 5 minutes. Mavis Green wiped her lips carefully with a napkin. I'd love to come, she said in her soft voice. They left Ellie's diner, walked left on Bridge Lane, then headed down Woodville Road toward the river. Mr. Paskey looked pretty upset, didn't he? Josh said, crunching his last of his cone. His chin was bright green, like the book. Wouldn't you be upset if you had a bunch of customers at your store waiting to meet a famous author and he didn't even show up? Ruth Rose asked. Yeah, but he was sweating buckets, Josh said. I wonder if Mr. Paskey kidnapped Wallace Wallace. Josh, get real. Why would Mr. Paskey kidnap an author? Asked Ruth Rose. He sells tons of Wallace Wallace books. I don't think Mr. Paskey is the kidnapper, Dink said, but in a way, Josh is right. Detectives should consider everyone a suspect, just the way they do in Wallace Wallace's books. At River Road, they turned left. 2 minutes later, Dink pushed open the door. Oh, there's a bunny outside. Dink pushed open the door of the Lawrence Taxi Service office. He asked the man behind the counter if one of their drivers had met Flight 3132 at Bradley Airport the previous night. The man ran his finger down the list on the clipboard. That would be Maureen Higgins. She's out back eating her lunch, he said, pointing over his shoulder. Just walk straight through. They cut through the building to a grassy area and back, and through the trees, Dink could see the Indian River. The sun reflected off the water like bright coins. A woman was sitting at a picnic table eating a sandwich and filling in a crossword puzzle. Excuse me, are you Maureen Higgins? Dink asked. The woman shook her head without looking up. Nope, I'm Marilyn Monroe. The woman wrote in another letter. Then she looked up. She had the merriest blue eyes Dink had ever seen. Yeah, cutie pie, I'm Maureen. She pointed her sandwich at Dink. And who might you be? I'm Dink Duncan, he said, and these are my friends, Josh, Ruth Rose, and Mavis Green. We wondered if you could help us, Ruth Rose says. Maureen stared at them. Well, how can I help you? Did you happen to pick up a man named Wallace Wallace at the airport last night? Dink asked. Maureen squinted one of her blue eyes. Why do you want to know? Because he is missing, said Josh. Well, I sure ain't got him. Maureen took a bite of her sandwich. Mayonnaise oozed onto her fingers. I know, we didn't think you had him, Dink said, but did you actually pick him up? Maureen nodded, swallowing. Sure, I picked him up, 7 o'clock sharp. I was there with my sign saying Wallace Wallace. The guy spots me, trots over. I take him out to my taxi. He climbs in carrying a small suitcase. Kind of spooky guy, dressed in a hat, long raincoat, sunglasses. Sunglasses at night? Doesn't speak a word, just sits there. Silent. Spooky. Did you take him to the Shangri-La Hotel? Dink asked. Yep, those were my orders. Guy didn't have to give directions, but it would have been nice if he'd said something. Pass the time, you know. A lot of people, they chat just to act friendly. Not this one. Quiet as a mouse in the back seat. Maureen wiped mayonnaise from her fingers and lips. Who is this Wallace Wallace fella anyways? He's a really famous writer, Ruth Rose said. Maureen's mouth fell open. You mean I had a celebrity in my cab and I never even knew it? Maureen stood up and tossed her napkin into the trash. I get out of my side, then I open the door. He hops out, hands me a $20 bill. Last I seen, he's scooting into the lobby. Dink pulled out the itinerary. He crossed out taxi with a thick black line, and then he drew a question mark next to hotel. Thanks a lot, Miss Higgins, he said. Come on, guys, I have a feeling we're getting closer to finding Wallace Wallace. Maureen put her hand on Dink's arm. I just thought of something, she said. When he handed me my fare, this Wallace Wallace fellow was smiling. Dink stared at Maureen, smiling. She nodded, yeah. He had a really silly grin on his face, like he knew some big secret that no one else did. Dun, dun, dun. All right, that's the end of chapter 4. Stay tuned tomorrow night for chapter 5 of the A to Z Mysteries, An Absent Author. Toodles.